Well, talking about that, I remember many years ago I read Losing Ground. If I'm not mistaken, I think you point out how the welfare system, welfare society damaged the minority and poor community, especially African American community. Well, after all these years, they are still in the Democratic Party, if not more of them are in the Democratic Party. And why do you think so?
Well, the Republicans have never offered the clear, convincing message that they could have offered. There is a very powerful message to be sent saying, look, what you need most of all is more ability to run your own lives. That what the Democrats are doing to you is preventing you taking the steps that can improve your lives and your children's lives. That case could be made. Try to think of a Republican who has made that case effectively. There basically are not any Republicans in senior positions to have done a good job of saying that.
But if you look at it, I interviewed plenty of Republican leaders, and their interest is more aligned with the upper classes and not with the lower classes, not with the poor community. I think naturally, when you look at what they do and how they get elected, they don't care that much about that community. And you're talking about the loss of civic life in America, and I think it's beginning from the 60s. I was not in America, I was in China then, very young. If you look at the 30s and the 40s, look at the African American community, the civic life was very active, was rising. But when you look at after 65, after the social policies, the civic life actually in African American community went down tremendously. And a couple of years ago, I went to South Carolina and different ghettos, and you just don't see any civic life, not any, not even church activities. I was very astonished. Why do you think the civic life in all community are going down so much?
It has to do with marriage. Civic life disappears, or at least gets very, very weak, when you do not have a community made up of married couples with children. I mean, think of all of the things that people do to improve their communities because they have children who they want to live in a good place. And furthermore, those activities depend on marriage, especially for the men, because men who are married fathers, they coach the Little League baseball team. They will go to PTA meetings. Their wife may make them go to the PTA meetings, but they do it. They participate in the church activities. They participate in the local civic clubs. Single fathers, unmarried fathers, don't do those things. So, what happened to the family? Partly it was the welfare system, whereby it became possible for a low-income woman to raise a baby without depending on a male to do it, and that made a big difference. At the same time, you had the sexual revolution and the invention of the pill, which then created lots more sexual activity than had existed before. And the sexual revolution meant that you did not have to get married to be able to have access to sex if you were a man. So you had a perfect storm. You had the welfare system, you had the sexual revolution, and together they made marriage much less attractive to men. And to some degree made it much less attractive to women because women didn't need to depend on men as much. So marriage goes down. I guarantee civic culture falls apart. It's just inseparable.
Religion. And you also see, even in the 80s, 90% of American pronounce they are religious. And now it's like not even 70%. I can't say it's a downfall, but it's decrease of religious activity. How does it contribute to the decrease of civic activities?
I think the decrease in religious engagement has a large independent effect on the civic culture because religion accounts for a lot of social capital, as the sociologists call it. The famous book Bowling Alone, written by Robert Putnam, calculated that about half of all philanthropic activity is religious in nature. So in one sense, the decline in religion is a cause of the decline in social capital. What caused the decline in religion? Partly large cultural forces, but also, again, it's the change in the family structure. A lot of religiosity has to do with setting an example for the children. So even if the parents aren't sure that they are deeply religious themselves, they still maintain membership in the church, and they still go to church every Sunday, and the children go to Sunday school because they rightly think this is a good thing for the children to have this grounding in strong moral values. But again, that works with married couples much more powerfully than it works with unmarried couples that have children.
Yeah, well, in a way, just talking as a scholar, you might in a American academic, you might be the father of political incorrectness. Yeah, I remember my professor Daniel Bell used to say, "Whoa, that is something."
Daniel Bell was very blunt himself,
yes,
open. Yes,
yes.
open, yes.
He was my professor.
You were very lucky.